Howdy, everyone. It's time to talk about Venom, The Last Dance. Okay, alright, I know. I should be doing election stuff right now. Well, I'm tired, okay? And it's all sort of just gonna happen, one way or the other. But let's talk about Venom, The Last Dance, okay? So, where to start here? Alright, so here's the short version of the review. If you liked the other Venom movies, then you'll probably like Venom The Last Dance. On a certain level, I actually think Venom The Last Dance might be the best of the Venom movies in a certain way. However, unfortunately for Venom The Last Dance, it's the best movie sort of by default because it has the advantage of being able to build off of the events of the previous two films. Now, the first Venom film, I had a good time with. I actually think it's a pretty decent watch. Not spectacular, kind of old school. Uses some tropes we haven't seen in a comic book movie in a minute. It definitely still feels like Sony is stuck in like 2005. Anyone who's nostalgic for that era of superhero movies, great news. The Venom movies continue to deliver on that. Although, Venom The Last Dance is a little bit more evolved. But it's a little bit more evolved because, and this is the thing, Venom The Last Dance, unlike most superhero movies from like the 2000 to 2010 range, well, actually, no, 2008 range, most of those superhero movies didn't get to have a trilogy. And see, that's sort of The Last Dance's advantages. This is the third part, the conclusion of a trilogy. And I'm a sucker for endings. And Venom The Last Dance ends okay. It does a good job. It delivers a satisfying experience. The Venom movies, in my opinion, are as good as a Venom movie without Spider-Man can possibly be. Which is an interesting sentence. In fairness, the Venom movies are also the best. Well, they would be the best, except, of course, the Spider-Verse movies are actually the best Sony Spider-Man movies currently going around. But pretty much everything else they've tried to spin into a new Spider-Man universe has not been great. Morbius is a movie that I personally enjoy, but also recognize is not great, or even particularly super good at all. It's fun, campy, junk food, and I was there for it. But the Venom movies are definitely better than Morbius. And they're both definitely better than Madam Web. Honestly, there's just a couple of scenes in Madam Web where I'm like, what is supposed to be happening right now? But that itself is also kind of a wacky sort of exploitation film. In fact, that's what all the Marvel movies sound. I'm sorry, that's what all the Sony Marvel movies feel like. Is throwbacks to some sort of bygone era of exploitation cinema, except without the gonads to go for that exploitation part of the exploitation cinema. Meaning that Morbius clearly had its blood removed, and Madam Web, surprisingly not very sexual. The Venom movies, well, I will say that the Venom movies are pushing the bounds of PG-13 violence about as far as it could possibly go. There's a thing in Venom The Last Dance. There's a couple things in Venom The Last Dance where it's like, oh, you can do that? Didn't know we could do that in PG-13. I haven't seen anything like that since Steven Spielberg had dinosaurs murder people. Definitely some of the most grotesque violence seen in a PG-13 movie, those Jurassic Park movies. Let's get back to Venom The Last Dance. like I said, Venom: The Last Dance is builds upon the two previous films, creating a nice little journey of this bromance here of Venom and Eddie Brock. The first movie establishes their meeting, and I'll be honest, I understand why some people kind of can't get behind the first movie, because the movie has a dramatic tonal shift once Eddie, connects with Venom and they become Venom. If you couldn't hold on for that tonal shift, then Venom, first Venom was probably not your bag. Probably not. Probably not. Yep. But I had a good time with it. I could handle the tonal shift. What about Venom Let There Be Carnage? Well, Venom Let There Be Carnage was a movie that was light on plot, lighter on character development for certain characters, and kind of felt like it was missing a third act. However, Tom Hardy's performance as Eddie Brock and Venom over here kind of carries the movie, and it's hard not to enjoy Woody Harrelson. And also, the action was pretty good, and once again, pushed that PG-13 rating to a point where I was like, oh, that's really pushing it there. Getting pretty R-rated for a PG-13 movie. Sure, there's no blood, but damn. Which brings us to Venom: The Last Dance, a movie that is a few different things. Simultaneously, the supposedly concluding chapter to this Venom trilogy, while also setting up something. What that something will come to be, not sure. But Venom will probably be involved. There's a lot of rumors right now that thing is going to be Spider-Man 4. That Null, the main villain from this movie, will appear in Spider-Man 4. But let's get to Venom: The Last Dance. What is Venom: The Last Dance? In Venom: The Last Dance, we tie things back around to the original film, addressing the fact of where the symbiotes in the first movie were going and why. Where were they going and why? Well, they were running. They were trying to get as far away from their creator as they could. You see, the symbiotes were created by an evil entity known as Null the Void, a being that wishes to cease the existence of the entire universe. Here played by Andy Serkis. Yes, I know, I saw those rumors saying that he was played by Norman Reedus also. Don't know what that was about, but it turns out it's Andy Serkis. Not complaining. It's also a nice throwback to the fact that Andy Serkis directed the second movie, in my opinion, the weakest of the movies, but still a movie that I enjoy as a guilty pleasure. Venom: The Last Dance is full of, fan service to those two previous movies, which is nice, I guess. The movie itself kind of feels like it's for the fans. If you like the other Venom movies, you'll probably like this one. If you didn't like the other Venom movies, then this is probably not for you, because it is definitely more of that, although its plot is more coherent than the second movie. I will give it that. Did I like Venom: The Last Dance? Actually, yes. Yes, I did. Like I already said, I actually think this is one of the stronger of the Venom movies for a number of reasons. One, it has a little bit more emotional depth to it. After all, it's kind of about death. Although, if you couldn't guess that from the title, I don't know what to tell you. From this point on, I'm going to get a little bit spoilery. So if you're planning on seeing the movie, which I recommend that you do, if you like the other Venom movies, then go check it out. That being said, let's talk a little bit more about this film. How does it start? Well, actually, it starts interestingly because this movie actually starts in the MCU with Venom and Tom Hardy in a bar talking to a bartender about Thanos, even though they do not reference Thanos by name. They then get pulled back through the multiverse to their own world in whatever Sony Spider-Man universe Venom is from. They do a fun thing here where essentially we go from seeing the MCU version of that city, which is a glistening metropolis, to the Sony version of this universe of this city, which is a shithole. Whether this is a direct reference to some specific MCU events or just some sort of inside joke that there's a lot more money that goes into the MCU than the Venom verse, I'm not sure, but I like it. We'd meet Tom Hardy and Venom as they are getting drunk in some Central American, possibly Mexican town. That, like I said, is a nice place in the MCU and a shithole here. On their way back, they of course run into some criminals, some people who are abusing and capturing dogs. So we get a nice little action scene here where they fight them. The major juxtaposition of the plot here is that because Venom in the first movie brought Tom Hardy back to life after he died, they became one and essentially create a sigil, a special key, if you will, that will unlock the evil god Null from his prison where the Venom symbiotes left him. I'm sorry, the symbiotes, Venom is just this specific symbiote, but the symbiotes left Null imprisoned, and they need this sigil to get him out. So Null sends his army of xenophages, special hunting monsters designed to kill the symbiotes, to hunt down these sigils and bring it back to Null to free him so that he can wipe out the entire universe. The thing is that it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings. The xenophages can see the sigil whenever Venom and Tom Hardy take on their full Venom form. However, they can still kind of use their Venom powers otherwise. It's just that if they go to their full transformation, that will hone the enemies in on them. And that's basically the premise of the movie. As these alien creatures hunt them down across America as they try to make their way basically from Area 51 to New York. Well, technically they're trying to make it to New York from like Mexico, and they end up in Nevada, where they have some fun times in Vegas in a fairly amusing sequence, including visiting with old friend Mrs. Chen, whatever, the Asian woman from the store in the first two movies. They run into her, they have a good time. However, Venom, I just also I want to say I find it so like there's a lot made about the like Venom as a series also kind of feels like it's about bisexuality. I can't lie. Venom feels like a very bisexual movie. These movies feel very bisexual to me. And I think it's very funny that Venom is actually the feminine in this relationship. And Tom Hardy is the masculine in their bromance. And Venom is the one who likes ABBA and music and musicals. Eddie hates musicals, apparently. I chuckled out loud in the movie theater when that happened. Fun fact, when I went to see this movie, oh wait, no, that's a spoiler. I'll save it for later. But I do have a fun fact about the showing that I went to. Meanwhile, while this is going on, the US government is, of course, trying to track down Venom because they have taken Detective Mulligan from the previous movie and used a symbiote to save his life. Essentially, they're now communicating with the symbiotes, and the symbiotes are telling them about Null, essentially. Mr. Ejiofor is here also as the top military brass, and he does a good job. The role has nothing to do with Count Mordu, disappointingly, but you know, it is what it is. Even though this movie does actually connect to the MCU, so that's fun. But anyways, basically he's out to try and hunt down the sigil and kill Tom Hardy and Venom because he knows it's the only way to prevent Null from coming to Earth. That being said, the symbiotes don't think that this is a solution. They want to try and help. The other symbiotes actually want to help Venom. So it's kind of a surprise. Now, one of the most fun things in this movie, though, because we got to talk about the Martins. While they are on the road, they run into an adorable hippie family who are on their way to Area 51 to see it before it gets shut down. And it's quite adorable. Arguably questionable parenting in terms of leading their children into danger. But I think the father character is just so like into aliens, he can't get over it. But basically, this family befriends Eddie Brock and to an extent Venom, even though they don't find out about Venom until a little bit later. But there's some really nice moments between Venom and Eddie Brock inside Eddie Brock's head, technically, where they're traveling with this hippie family, and Venom is just like contemplating the life that Eddie Brock could have had if he had like had a family instead of being who he was. And he thinks that Eddie could have been happy doing it. It's really nice. And honestly, I thought I enjoy the hippie family, having been raised by hippies. I thought they were kind of adorable, if space definitely spaced out hippie types. And yes, the hippie dad is played by the same guy who played the Lizard in Amazing Spider-Man, but he is not the same character at all. After all, they are called the Martins. No one here is a Parker or a what is the doctor's name from what is the Lizard's? I forget the Lizard's real name. But anyways, I thought they were pretty adorable, to be completely honest. I do love the hippie family in this movie. So now I'm going to talk about all that stuff I've said so far. You could still watch the movie and not have terribly much of it spoiled. Also, Null, I have to say, Null is pretty comic book accurate. There's just some minor tweaks. They really got him down. Now, another character they changed significantly, though, is Dr. Payne, who is completely different here and a much more sympathetic character, and also a woman, but also not a bad guy. Dr. Payne is working with Mr. Ejiofor and the military on Project Imperium, where they're studying symbiotes that crashed to Earth in a meteor that they captured. Now, technically, these are different symbiotes than the previous symbiotes, but like, I have to assume that all the symbiotes in the first movie were also doing what these symbiotes were doing, which is getting the hell away from Null. Honestly, some of the best moments are just Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock with Venom. There's just if you're into the characters, then there's a lot here to like sort of take in emotionally about their relationship. So let me bring that to you to the ultimate spoiler. At the end of the movie, Venom dies. A noble sacrifice. See, because they know that they can't let Null have the key. That would be the end of absolutely everything. And Tom Hardy thinks that he's going to go with him. But Venom at the last minute spits Tom Hardy out and uses industrial acid to melt himself and the xenophages. It's actually pretty well done, even though I do think it's hilariously weird that they were using industrial acid to like just melt old equipment at Area 51. Seems weird. I guess decontamination, possibly. I don't know. The point is that I enjoyed the movie, and I thought the ending was nice, fairly well done. There are 2 after credit scenes. What those after credit scenes will ultimately mean, including the one about Null, and the other one that might imply a possible way for Venom to return. Could see more Venom. However, I would theorize that if we do see any more of Tom Hardy's Venom, I don't think it will be in a solo movie. I am predicting that if they do something with Null, I kind of expect these 2 characters to show up in that movie, whatever that turns out to be. However, there are already rumors that a new Venom or Agent Venom is coming. That Venom 4 will be Agent Venom, which is Flash Thompson in the comic books, I believe, working for the government. At least that's what it is in the comic books. But I would not be surprised if Eddie Brock shows up in whatever is going on with Null. Just wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Overall, I like the Venom The Last Dance. That being said, I also don't necessarily think it will win over people who didn't like the first two movies. But if you did like the first two movies, then absolutely you should see this. I guess that's really my only takeaway. Sure, the movie is technically about death. It's about letting go. It's about how life is the journey that we take until we get to that point. And even Null himself is really more just a metaphor for the emptiness of death and the fact that we will all eventually die. Is it the deepest of the Venom movies? Sure, sure. But it's still no Joker 2 in terms of depth or anything. But, still probably the third best comic book movie I've seen this year. Not that that's saying much with this year. After all, the other two best comic book movies I saw were Joker 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. But hey, all three of these movies that I've just mentioned are all better than Madam Web. I feel like I'm forgetting something else, but it is what it is.
Real quick, I did forget to bring back that fact about the screening that I saw. So the screening that I went to, there was actually apparently a child that became extremely emotional when Venom died. Apparently very upset that his hero had just died. But that's cinema. That's art. That child was touched emotionally by the outcome of the film. Kind of adorable, honestly.
All right. Did you see Venom The Last Dance? If so, please let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And, you can also follow me on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts. If you'd like to contact the program or even be on the program, you can email me at rubenuncut@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful whatever, wherever, whoever you are.